Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. I didn't bring my external, but we'll be able to talk through.
nation. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Hey guys, good morning. I hope you can hear me. I don't have my external mic, and I have a mask on. I'm here at UMD&J today with Dr. Sharif Elnahar. This is him. And, I was told, and I'll let him explain it, but I was told that there was going to be a protest out in front of the hospital today concerning vaccinations. This is all around COVID-19 and trying to keep our community safe. We all have read the reports, we've seen the reports. Many of us have in fact dealt with the sad fact that we've lost loved ones, and the tragedy of it all. So in the middle of this, what has concerned me and what got me down here, out of the bakery, guys, I was in the bakery baking, and what got me out of the bakery and down here is that you have self-serving people. You have people who, for personal financial gain, down here protesting, risking lives. And so this is about, who to believe, where the facts are, and what we should do to protect ourselves. And so I figured, the best place to come is directly to the source and have a conversation. On the line, guys, I have Vincent Squire from South Jersey. And I have Lori Endicott Thomas, who's been a frequent guest on the show. She's the author of 6 books and working on her 7th, I believe. She's authored No More Measles, right? And many other books. She has nearly 30 years of experience as a researcher, medical researcher. So we're just going to weigh in and we're going to have this conversation. The calling number is listed down here. It's 90841-5499. We'll try to take some calls if we can. But I want to open the floor and I want to welcome Dr. Elnahar. So let's just get to the heart of it. What is going on today?
Well, what we have is that folks are going to show up at the hospital to protest
Vincent, mute your phone, please. Thank you.
I think the narrative that they're pushing is both accurate and disagreed, especially since I can just say for myself, I came to this hospital optimistic about what this part of the hospital serves this community serve because it's supposed to do. It's supposed to provide us and provide us meetings and qualified it's explicitly state city government was actually displaced by Wisconsin essentially.
I'm sorry, doctor. I just need to interfere. This is Diane Murray. We can absolutely hear nothing that you're saying. We can barely hear you, Eric, and we heard nothing that he said the whole time. So I don't know. You need me to go get your external and bring it to you because I don't want to waste your interview.
So, well, no, I'm going to try to bring the computer closer. Oh, we can see the photo. No, we're using the mic on the computer. So here's the gauge. So we're at yellow. I don't know. I mean, I can scream, Diane. But
I can hear you at a low tone, but I can hear nothing. We hear nothing that the doctor has said from the start to just now. So what do you need me to help you do?
Is this better?
Just say a couple of things because I'm not listening to the feed now. Can you guys hear the doctor now? Go ahead and say something, doctor. Just say hello or something.
Hello, how are you?
testing.
Testing.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear, Diane?
I'm listening through the phone. Darren, can you hear? There's some humming in the background too, they said. I don't know if you're under the air conditioner, could be it as well. Darren, can you hear the doctor though?
Hello.
Okay, he said a little better. So you really gotta like project your voice really loud. Sorry about that, but go ahead.
That's okay. I don't know. Yeah, we're gonna do what we gotta do. I apologize. No, that's okay. I apologize for not having all of my clips. But bear with us, guys, because this is very, very important. And maybe that'll be better. Diane, am I better?
It's still very low, Darren. They're saying it's very low.
All right. No, I'll plug it.
I can hear just fine over my phone.
Well, yeah, over the phone, but we're talking about through the through Facebook and YouTube. You can't hear it.
All right, is this better?
Okay, you're coming in really good on YouTube.
All right, so yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so hopefully this is better, guys. This is as good as we can get. All right. Yeah, we can't get any better than this. So,
Why are they protesting?
yeah, why are they protesting? Thank you.
Well, what is being projected on social media is this idea that we are targeting minority communities with this study. And of course, that harkens back to the very, very troubled history that the medical establishment has with
Correct.
experimentation in the black community.
Correct.
So, starting with Dr. Marion Sims, who was a gynecologist who experimented on enslaved women and used the learnings from that experimentation to set the standard for gynecologic procedures, proceeding to the Tuskegee trial,
Right.
the infamous and really horrific trial where black men who served this country were followed intentionally with syphilis to understand the natural history of the disease.
Right.
And of course, that was an exclusively recruited community that was black to benefit medical science, but certainly not benefit the people in the trial who were harmed. I cannot tell you, I cannot emphasize how much what we are doing is different from that. So first and foremost, I just want to clarify, I am enrolling in the study later today. Okay. So for anyone who thinks that we are putting the community at risk without putting ourselves at risk, I'm enrolling in the study, as are other members of my executive team here at the hospital.
So this is volunteer.
It's
right?
volunteer.
Nobody. Firstly, they're not coercing anybody through threats or anything like that to get them to volunteer. Nobody's going and corralling a bunch of people, right? Hurting them here and doing that. This is something that is offered to folks in order to determine the efficacy of this vaccine, right? Whether or not it works, whether or not it will be useful, whether ultimately we will save lives.
Absolutely. And, I have a few other points to make
Sure.
on how different this is.
The second piece is that we are only one site of 89 across the country that are currently recruiting in majority white communities into the same study. So it's a national study. It's not just a study that's being done here. And the vast majority of recruits thus far, as reported by the New York Times last week, are white Americans. And people are concerned that if you're not having a representative population that is undergoing the study, you're not going to understand where and how effective the vaccine is going to be for the people who need it most.
How were the sites chosen?
The sites were chosen with applications from scientists across the country to the NIH.
Okay.
So this is Dr. Fauci's part of the NIH. Dr. Fauci has vouched for the safety of this vaccine. The vaccine has gone through several stages of study already, mostly to assess for serious side effects. And thankfully, serious side effects have not been documented for this vaccine. So what we know is that it's already been studied. Those phase 1, phase 2 studies were not done here in Newark. But we are one of just a few sites that is serving a majority-minority community. And what we're trying to do is recruit folks not based on any racial quotas. It's based on volunteerism. It's based on outreach and with informed consent. So a big issue with Tuskegee is that people were lied to intentionally to get them in the study. We have an institutional review board that completely reviewed the ethical nature of the study, whether information was accurate, and anybody who's interested is given the full information on possible side effects and what the potential benefits are before they are enrolled. So it's completely voluntary, it's informed consent, and frankly, having it here in this community is important about whether to understand whether certain candidates, vaccine candidates, will actually work in our community.
So I want to just ask you this question, and guys, you guys can weigh in as well. All of the medicine that we have, all of the things that save our lives right now, they have all at some point gone through some sort of a clinical trial, right, to determine whether or not they were effective. And so this idea that a big pharma or medical industry right now is out to get folks in the middle of trying to solve for this epidemic is feeding into a narrative that, like you said earlier, Doctor, is taking advantage of people who may, have all the information or part of the information regarding those horrific past experiments and things that occurred to black folks, and because of that, they're hoping that the black community in particular shies away from this. But what would that mean?
Well, the stigma of the black community is not trust the experiment, but not trust doctors, period.
Lori, you want to weigh in?
Because of the experiments that he spoke about. But maybe they could feel better, doctor, if you could tell them what is the process to get to where you're at in the clinical trials.
Absolutely. So this vaccine, and by the way, there are dozens of vaccine candidates being studied now. This particular vaccine has gone through what it's called a phase 1 safety study, where they give it to a number of patients and they assess for side effects, and they continue to assess for side effects going forward. And thankfully, there were no serious side effects noted in the phase 1 study.
Okay.
A phase 2 study is being done to really hone in on the right dosing. But we know what a safe dose is because the certain dose that's being used in the trial we're doing is the dose that had minimum number of side effects that's likely to be effective. But the phase 2 study recruited hundreds of people, none of whom had serious side effects. So now you have a number of patients in the hundreds who've gotten this study without side effects. What this study is assessing is whether it actually prevents coronavirus infection or not. That requires a comparison between a group of patients who get the vaccine versus a group of patients who get a decoy vaccine or a placebo, and then compare infection rates going forward. Nobody is intentionally exposed to coronavirus. Everybody is given the same exact information on wearing masks, preventing infection, washing your hands, social distancing. So there is no manipulation by any means of infection rates from when it comes to that. But folks are still exposed and folks still get the disease. So that's why you have to track it over time.
Right.
But the whole point is, one really cannot argue that this study is targeting Newark and Newark residents specifically, because it's being done all over the country. There's going to be 30,000 people recruited. So far, the vast majority of people recruited are white Americans. So, again, this is the need, the imperative we have, is to make sure we are represented in the study population in an ethical way. Nobody is compelling anyone to join. It's completely voluntary. But unless we end up having some level of representation, preferably to the level of representation of the population, so 40% of the country are people of color.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get to that percentage because of that historical mistrust. But the extent to which we can start breaking the back of that mistrust can only help.
So Diane, on my way in, you asked me a question. You said, why are they doing this with black people, right? Was your question now answered, Diane? Oh, I don't know if Diane's still on the line.
One of the biggest reasons for the representation of the population is that the black population is disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. We have the largest counts of death, the largest counts of infection, and the largest counts of asymptomatic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, we have had very, very poor success as a country in getting people of color enrolled in clinical trials, and then we wonder why the interventions that end up being approved don't work as well on people of color. It's because it wasn't assessed scientifically as well as it was in majority white and suburban communities. So knowing the imperative that you're saying for finally doing an intervention that gets us out of this pandemic, allows us to get to some level of normalcy. Again, knowing that it will require a vaccine to do that as one of many things that we do, we felt it was important to bring what we know to be a safe vaccine to a clinical trial here. Again, we are not compelling anybody to do this.
Right.
There's no pressure. In fact, there's a protocol in place to make sure that the way that this vaccine is advertised is under strict regulatory and compliant ways, and we're not going to pockets of communities asymmetrically and marketing it there. In fact, we're going to get a lot of white Americans enrolling in the study here because healthcare workers are very excited to get this, because they're the ones that are most at risk, and we have a lot of white healthcare workers in this hospital. So, again, to argue that this is targeting the black community asymmetrically, to argue that it's targeting Newark asymmetrically, simply is just not true.
Well, it is targeted because at the current state, with it being tested in predominantly white America, means that white America will benefit more from this and increasing the ineffectiveness of the vaccine in black America.
Absolutely.
And, honestly, it becomes an equity issue once we do have an FDA-approved vaccine. Making sure that vaccine gets to communities like ours, the majority of minority communities, is really important.
Right.
And if we have folks out there that are not only casting doubt and dispersions on this study, but vaccination in general.
Right.
My understanding is that the folks organizing this are anti-vaccine.
They're anti-vaccine in general, correct.
Then there's never been a time where that's more dangerous than now. Knowing that a vaccine will be one of the most important tools we have to get us out of COVID-19.
So what are the side effects?
The side effects,
known side effects now.
There's a variety of side effects that were noted in the phase 1 trial that have been published. I'll go through a couple of them. Local pain where the vaccine was given, skin irritation, nausea and vomiting in a subset of patients, and some other side effects that we can send to your listeners and your folks in a chart. I'm not sure I'm getting all of them here. But the point is that none of them that were documented were what's called serious adverse events.
Yeah.
The vaccine didn't cause a seizure in anyone. It didn't cause anyone to pass out. It didn't cause anyone to have to go to the hospital, an extended hospital stay. You're talking about side effects that are common to a lot of vaccines.
True.
So a lot of folks fever is one of them. A lot of folks get a fever after they get the flu vaccine. A lot of folks get local skin irritation, local pain, nausea, vomiting after some childhood immunization vaccines. But the whole point is that the benefit of those vaccines outweighs the risk. It's
True.
much worse to get the flu than get the flu vaccine. It's much worse to get the measles than to get the measles vaccine.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is, of course, make sure that it works. And that's what this trial is about.
So
but
you're not injecting the actual disease into the body.
Yeah, what's because that's what's being again going back to the Tuskegee experiments. What is actually being injected into the folks, or will be injected into the folks who voluntarily enter into this clinical trial?
It's an excellent question, because some types of vaccines are actually a disabled form of the live virus, right? That's not what this is. This is a completely different type of vaccine that's actually completely novel. So what it is it's a chemical that's injected. It's a type of, it's called mRNA, that actually makes your own body synthesize the proteins that look like the virus. So it's mimicking the virus.
Okay.
And those proteins that mimic the virus cause an immune response and allow you to develop antibodies. And this vaccine has been proven to actually cause development of antibodies in humans in phase 1 and phase 2. So what we want to do is see if those antibodies are actually protective against the virus and in a much bigger population. We are not injecting coronavirus in people, and we are not intentionally exposing coronavirus to anybody to assess whether it works. It is a type of biological material that goes into your cells and allows your cells to synthesize proteins that look like the virus. It mimics the virus.
Okay.
So you're injecting a fake virus, which is not harmless, to get the body,
which is not harmful. Which is not harmful. You said harmless.
Which is not harmful.
Correct.
Yes, into the body, so that the body can build the immunity against the actual virus.
Exactly. And the way that most vaccines work is that you're injecting something that mimics what you're trying to prevent,
right,
so that your immune system can generate the ammunition it needs to fight the real virus if you ever end up getting infected.
Okay.
So that's the same concept with this.
Lori, do I have you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening with great interest.
Okay.
The mRNA, the RNA viruses. RNA is basically a recipe for a protein, and the coronavirus has a virus in general is just a package of genetic material, which is basically recipes that's delivered into a living cell. The living cell then takes those recipes and makes the parts for a new virus. Those parts get assembled into new viruses, and then it goes on to the next cell. So that's how viral infection works.
One second, Lori. 1 second. Don't hang up. I tried to bring another call on. Didn't work.
So you guys have basically taken all the safeguards in curing or stopping the spread of this virus.
What we're trying to do is introduce something that may work to prevent coronavirus in a controlled, heavily monitored environment. So I'm enrolling later today in the trial. I'm going to be screened for conditions, so I have diabetes and I have asthma. As long as those two things are well controlled, I'll qualify for the study. And then I will be given an entire set of documents of informed consent as to read it. So all of the side effects that were noted in the initial trials, what other side effects may be that we don't know about. And I'm going to be asked if I can demonstrate an understanding of the potential risks. If I do, then they'll ask me to sign a consent form, and then I will be enrolled either in the placebo arm or the arm that actually gets the vaccine. But the point is, it's all voluntary.
It's all voluntary, and with your consent, transparent. You're giving all the information, and black folks are not being targeted.
No,
I mean,
and in fact,
that is the. I mean, those are the key things, right? That black people that they're not coming into the community to inject black folks with poison to kill them. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, Vince? I mean, that's kind of if we would have distilled the message that these anti-vacciners are spewing. I mean, that's it. Watch out, guys. They're trying to poison you. They're trying to kill you off, right? And that's just not true.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the folks that are organizing this demonstration later today have looped in the broader New Jersey anti-vaccination movement, which is mostly, white suburban people in New Jersey. I saw them in Trenton when I was helping.
Sure.
They stormed the State House many times when there was legislation on the table for vaccines.
And if you know, what is their motive? I mean, because I just can't imagine that folks just that divorced of humanity, that they would have this information and just want to see people at risk. I mean, what is the motive? If you know, maybe you don't, but what would be the motive be?
I've engaged with some folks in the anti-vaccine community before. Some of them have had personal experiences with children or family members who've got autism. They've read since discredited information about a supposed link between vaccines and developmental disorders, autism in children. And so a lot of them have personal experiences and reasons for believing it.
So they believe what they believe, but then behind them, there are folks who we don't see, we never see, who are fueling that and funding it, right? And allowing them by the resources they make available as they gather in large masses, travel across the country, and spew this misinformation.
And listen, I don't know whether that's happening here, the extent to which that's happening, but my role here, I'm not a politician, I'm not a government official anymore. I'm the president of this hospital, and I used to be a public health official. And my job is to basically tell you whether I think something is safe or beneficial to you. I'll stand. I have no interest in this financially at all.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you. The next question is this, right? So you're sitting here, and one of the things that they say either overtly or is that somehow everybody is plugged in, everybody's going to pocket some money on the backs of killing black people. I mean, that is the narrative, and I fight it every day on my social media pages. It's like, you got to watch out for the pharma industry, you got to watch out for the medical industry. They're all in your pocket and they're killing you.
Well, what would be a huge motivation for a group of suburban white people who get very little effects, very little casualties of the virus, yet benefit the most from the results of this vaccine to date, to organize and spread propaganda against something that is in their benefit?
Well, I mean, that's the issue, right? So a lot of folks who are anti-vaccine are from more privileged socioeconomic groups in society. And so, yes, they can safely socially isolate at home. If a member of your family, if you have a bigger house, gets COVID-19, they have their own part of the house they can be in. not everybody in our community has those luxuries.
But then not only that, but not only that, guys, they can, if they do contract COVID-19, right, they have resources.
Excellent medical care.
Right, so they do the anti-vaccine thing until they contract it, and then they have the resources. Meanwhile, they're telling folks who don't have those resources, don't take the vaccine, and if you contract it, you have no recourse. You don't, because the black community suffers drastically from zero to little health care, right? Financially, their inability to be able to afford it. And so this benefits that demographic of people the most.
Yes, especially because those people are in 2.5 households. The majority of them children go to private schools or schools that are allowing them to get their education on site. Majority of the parents can work from home, so they have a strong level of isolation, and they do, of course, have great corporate or company health care. So I'm not getting why are a group of black people who can benefit the most from this, all riled up about something that can help them.
Exactly, and conversely, the longer we have to wait for a vaccine that works, the worse this community is going to fare when it comes to this pandemic. So the lack of availability of a working vaccine will impact communities and people of color the most. So we're trying to not only make sure that we recruit a representative population, but to be able to, with a straight face and with honesty, go to the community and say, we have a high degree of confidence this vaccine will work in this community. And without recruiting folks from this community or communities like it, we won't be able to say that honestly. And then the segments of the country that would most benefit from the vaccine are not going to.
If there is no vaccine, what do you say? I've got a cousin who's a school teacher, right? So they're not going back in the classroom. Some of the schools that were looking to get kids back in class, parents said that they're not going to send their kids back by and large. And as Vincent said earlier, so where you have black kids who don't go to classroom, they're disadvantaged because they don't have access to internet, they don't have access to all of them. But again, those suburban folks who are protesting this, they have Wi-Fi, they have top-notch computers, their school systems have smart boards and all those things. So even during this, while we're trying to figure it out, the education gap and all of those gaps that we were so concerned about are just widening.
And that's a big issue that is definitely here in New York. We want to make sure, of course, consultation with the superintendent, the mayor, that folks get the education they need starting from time. And part of that is using those channels also to educate about what folks need to do to take care of their health. And the fact is, it's harder to get to folks in communities where people aren't digitally connected, and there's still a digital gap, digital divide, as they say, between folks of color and the rest of the population. The extent to which we can help close that gap will really help also discover myths about digital vaccination.
So how are you, what methods have you guys taken to go and inform the community so far?
So this has gone through really fast. One thing I will admit is that because Operation Warp Speed has gone fast, aptly named, we didn't have nearly as much time to socialize what this study was to the community. Normally we have a process. We work with Dr. Diane Hill, who's the Assistant Chancellor, Vice Chancellor here in the city of Newark, under Chancellor Nancy Cantor, who has a targeted program to educate folks about clinical trials available to them in Newark and beyond, and what those trials mean, what the risks are. We didn't have time to go through that deliberate process where you're socializing directly. And so, in a vacuum, folks are going to assume things, and I don't blame anybody for being skeptical or concerned and not wanting to volunteer for the study. That is your choice. And that's something that we very much believe, and the mayor's statement yesterday made that clear. But what I do want to say is that we're starting to do that process. We're doing a Facebook Live this coming Thursday out of the hospital's page.
Perfect.
To answer any questions from the community. The week after, we're meeting with community leaders, including the faith-based community here in Newark. I was just on a call with Reverend Derek Green out of the governor's office, who convenes leaders of faith across the state, including many in Essex County and the city of Newark, explaining what the trial is and the fact that it's voluntary and why it is completely different from what Tuskegee did to the black community.
Mm-hmm.
All of that needs to be explained, needs to be socialized. We need to answer questions because folks are going to be skeptical, and that's okay. And folks are going to be skeptical even after they hear all of that,
Right.
and that's okay. But we want to make sure is that there isn't this false narrative that we're unjustly targeting the black community here in Newark with this study, which is just simply not true.
Vincent? Lori?
Well, it seems like to me the group that is unjustly targeting the black community would be the group that's financing this protest.
I don't know.
In my, I'm sorry. In my experience, the and I talk about this in No More Measles, the anti-vaccination movement is consists of a lot of people who are just afraid, and they trust what they've been told by authority figures they respect. And I don't have a problem with those people because they're basically decent human beings. But the people who are leading this anti-vaccination movement generally want the same things that all ambitious people want, which is power, property, and prestige. And everybody's saying, oh, well, the pharma company is going to make money from selling products. Well, I mean, everybody in business makes money from selling products. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean a product is bad. But what the anti-vaccination people want is they want the power and prestige that they don't deserve. I mean, the prestige should go to people who actually do know how to solve problems, not people who are telling lies. And so you have to be very skeptical about the anti-vaccination movement leaders. What do they want? Why are they doing this? And a lot of them are selling products that don't work. So they're selling overpriced supplements, or they have some sort of treatment that doesn't work, or they want you to worship them as your spiritual leader, and that kind of person is dangerous.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is, it's unclear who is hearing the message in this community, who will show up today. And because I don't know who folks are who are hearing that message, it's hard to cast any level of judgment. But what I'll say is this has been propagated. So out of the legitimate concern about medical experimentation in the black community, I think that concern is being exploited.
Sure.
To push a narrative against vaccines in general by certain stakeholders. And I'm not even talking about folks from this community who started this protest and got the word out about it. In fact, one of them I know I've met before, and she's great. She's been to a lot of our community events, and I respect her, Ms. Donna Jackson. And she's been to our events and she's heard our narrative and she supports the hospital, and I appreciate that. But the folks that are from outside of this region, right, who are exploiting that sentiment of that there's been unfortunate medical experimentation in the black community to push their own agenda cynically, those are the folks that I think need to be called out for exactly what you're saying.
Sure. So your next steps then are the trial has started, or when does it start?
The trial's starting to recruit people today, so I'm going to be one of the first people. this afternoon
Okay.
to be screened. There's a process for screening, so not everybody who's interested can get in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to meet certain health criteria. You want to make sure people aren't too sick,
Okay.
because the phase 1, phase 2 studies were in healthy people. So again, taking all the precautions you need. So that's a process. But well before we're going to meet our target thresholds for people recruiting, we're going to be making sure we do all of that stakeholder engagement. We weren't allowed to talk about this study from the NIH because everything was hush-hush until the press release came out, which was a disadvantage because normally we would have wanted to do that.
Sure.
The community deserves that, in my opinion. But we're starting it in earnest this week on this show. I was, again, on that call with pastors this morning. Later today and later this week, we're doing more events. We need to make sure we get out there and explain this so that folks don't think that we are, again, unjustly targeting certain groups.
Yeah. I mean, I think that reaching these stakeholders is going to be great. I think that what's also, and it's, kind of challenging to do, social distancing and such. But literally getting out and talking to folks in the community too, right? And just knocking on doors, leaving door knockers and that kind of stuff. Phone numbers where folks can, can call and get some information. Maybe a hotline would be helpful. A continued Facebook Live and Zoom, town halls that, really just kind of talk about this with people, because it's not going to be overnight. Because unfortunately, some of the folks who are engaged on the other side, who have been co-opted by these anti-vacciners, they have been long-standing folks in the community, right? And like it or not, they're folks who listen to what they say, and that's why they were recruited, right? To be quite honest with you. And so they're leveraging those relationships that they have with the community for self-interest now. And to be able to combat that is going to require, quite frankly, a reasonable effort. Get.
I wanted to let's point out another misconception. Now, Trump has initiated Operation Warp Speed, and the only thing and everything that we see about that gives what? Right now, we're talking about $700 million to pharmaceutical groups that aren't doing anything, and the mass production of hydrochloroquine that does nothing. How does Operation Warp Speed help your process?
Well, the part of Operation Warp Speed that has to do with this is the portion of the NIH where Dr. Fauci is putting out studies. His group is putting out studies across the country for different vaccine candidates. Now, we have a process here at the hospital that reviews clinical trials before we approve them here for this community. And I will tell you, that process was deliberative here. We made sure that there was actually good phase 1 and phase 2 data that looks at safety before we would introduce it to the community. And again, the reason I emphasized in the beginning of this program that I am enrolling in this, I would not enroll in this unless I think that data is convincing about safety. Again, I don't know if it will work. There are signs that it will work because it generates an immune response. But we don't know for sure if it will actually prevent COVID-19. And that's what being honest with the community is about. This is a research study. By no means should you be compelled to do it. If you want to be a candidate and potentially get the vaccine because you think it might work after hearing all the information, great, we're here for you. But this went through an approval process to make sure that that data was adequate. There are other elements of the campaign for COVID-19, developing therapeutics that I can't speak to, but when it comes to this particular study, it's one of many that has that broader title of Operation Warp Speed. I will tell you this, if the FDA approves a vaccine before there is convincing data on its efficacy, that will be one of the most damaging things that happens, because that will give the anti-vaccination movement the ammunition they need to cast doubt on all vaccines. And I would not be comfortable introducing even an approved vaccine that did not wait for the phase 3 study data to mature,
Right.
and to actually show convincingly that it prevents COVID-19.
How about the weakened vaccine or the plasma that they've been injecting into people? How does yours differ from that?
So plasma therapy is when you take somebody else's antibodies after they've recovered from COVID-19 and inject it into people who are still sick with COVID-19 that have not yet had their own antibody response. So the way your body fights viruses, you produce these things called antibodies. Antibodies stick to the virus and allow your killer immune system cells to come and destroy the virus, right?
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're helping the person's immune system by giving antibodies from someone else to allow that process to happen. We did, under a clinical trial, that work here a couple of months ago. We've already enrolled everybody. We saw some favorable results. These are folks who were very sick, ran out of options, basically. And some did well with the therapy, although we have to wait to see if it's acceptable to give to everybody. And that won't come until we get study results later on.
Great. So yours is not that, and I cannot express my gratitude for your research and study and your passion towards this project. What I'd like to say, because those anti-vaccine jackasses do listen to this show, so why don't you guys do society in general a favor and stay your ass home?
I knew you couldn't control yourself, Vincent. But you know what? The level of frustration is understood. Yeah. I mean, we're giving, real information here.
Yeah. I'll say this. It's one thing to present legitimate arguments. Hey, we think these studies are moving too fast. Hey, there isn't clear enough data on whether it's effective yet. We can engage on that debate in conversation, regardless of who the person is, whether identify with the anti-vaccine movement or not. But to spread false information about things like childhood immunizations, when I was health commissioner, we had multiple measles outbreaks.
So let's do this. What are the specific things that they're going to, that you know of, based on you being involved in it as a commissioner before, that they're going to bullet point and say, watch out for this. It's dangerous because of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And then I want to mention those, and then I want to unpack them and dispel them.
Yeah. So look, the main thrust of their argument is going to be that these studies are being done too fast. And we don't know every possible side effect across a population of millions of people yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. We won't know that even after this phase 3 study. However, other interventions, other medications are approved by the FDA for use well before it's been used in hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And after approval, it's often noted that there are rare side effects, and then we update the medical literature, we update the risk and benefit that we give to patients, to the community. So in other words, it's not really different from what other types of drug candidates and interventions go through in the scientific process. So they're going to keep criticizing that.
So they say that it's going too fast. What would be, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic,
That's
right?
the other piece of it.
And so it seems that they're saying that we need to slow down. And I think, as you said before, the side effects, at least what we're seeing now, the side effects are marginal compared to someone contracting and dying from COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Right? So when they say slow down to do what? And when we see all of but some of these people are saying, folks who are saying don't wear masks. Right? So you understand what I'm saying? So, and they're out there, convincing people that we should rely on herd immunity. It's all just very dangerous. It's reckless.
If I could just speak to this herd immunity myth.
Please.
Okay. If we were to wait until herd immunity happened naturally, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of
explain
deaths.
so people who don't explain herd immunity.
Absolutely.
Immunity,
Herd immunity.
and then continue.
So herd immunity is a phenomenon where enough people in the population develop an immunity or their own immune systems can successfully fight a virus before it affects them. Enough people in the population are protected by their own immune systems such that even folks who have not had the disease or do not have an immune system are less likely to get it. Because if I'm only one person out of 1 million people who doesn't have that immune response, I won't get it because enough other people are immune.
Right.
So a lot of folks are saying, who are anti-vaccination, are saying, well, we're going to achieve herd immunity, or political interests actually, are saying we're going to achieve herd immunity naturally by letting this thing spread.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, that'll end the pandemic. Well, let me tell you the human cost of that kind of strategy. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people dying from COVID-19. We're talking about millions and millions of people dying. So if you think that human cost is worth going the herd immunity route and not doing a vaccine to try to reach that immunity, then I'm not sure there's common ground for a discussion, because I don't think that human cost is worth waiting for this, herd immunity myth. The other thing, by the way, is that a lot of folks, if they get COVID-19, don't develop an immune response the first time. And so they may get a recrudescence of that virus later. In other words, getting it does not necessarily confer long-term immunity.
Like the gentleman who now has contracted it twice.
Exactly. So a vaccine gets you there quicker and more people quicker if it works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how one of the biggest steps to get us out of this pandemic.
And so for me, though, when you talk about the herd immunity solution, right, as a Black American, looking at the data that shows that Black Americans, because of underlying conditions, right, were dying at a disproportionate rate. Well, if we're talking about herd immunity, that means that more Black Americans who have these underlying conditions are going to contract it and are going to die at disproportionate rate, right? To whatever that millions and millions of people are. Then when you add on top of that the issues, whether you talk about the racial issues in healthcare or the lack of financial resources or health insurance resources or medical resources, it puts that population of people at greater risk, right? So you're saying, and so for me, the Black folks who will be out here protesting later on, talking about not wearing masks, talking about herd immunity, talking about all these things, are literally just putting Black folks potentially putting Black folks at greater risk.
Yes. So waiting for herd immunity to kick in will mean disproportionate infections in communities of color. Because the first time around, when nobody had this hit us all in the face, this pandemic, guess who was impacted much more asymmetrically? It was Black and brown people in urban environments for the most part who were impacted by this.
And this is data. So when they say
this is real data,
this is real data, because one of the things they say is, they're these are scare tactics, right? That they're trying to scare folks into making what they call irrational decisions by going in and supporting vaccines and such. But this is data.
Well, the worst thing in their scare tactic is that they're using fake news. They're using fake CDC propaganda. They're using fake American health propaganda. And I mean, it's so fake that they've got bad copies of the CDC and the American Health logos on their propaganda. And people are still believing these idiots.
It is not just lies, it's manipulation of information. And it's insidious because they will go to anything that resonates with a population they're trying to recruit, they're going to grab onto it. And what I fear is that if anti-vaccination movement interests well outside of Newark, well outside of Essex County, feel that there's a groundswell, critical mass of people who are believing it, that's what will become very dangerous for the community. Because when we do eventually have an approved vaccine, which could be as soon as later this year or early next year, if that groundswell grows and this becomes an issue of a manipulation of the racial justice narrative, and folks grab onto that in this community, then we're not going to be able to get enough confidence to administer whatever vaccine works. And therefore, folks here are going to be much worse off than the suburbs and elsewhere. I think we can prevent that. I think, if we humbly, like I'm trying to do now, if we go before stakeholders in the community and explain what we're trying to do with this COVID-19 vaccine, first of all, accept responsibility for the fact that this was pushed faster than I would have wanted, without the chance to dutifully socialize it and explain it and take questions and answer those questions. But if we do that right starting now, and that's what I'm going to try very hard to do, then I don't think that will happen. I think people will have confidence in it and they will take it.
Well, here's my question, and I understand what you're doing in terms of reaching out to these stakeholders. Some of the biggest stakeholders in the Black community are pastors, right? The church. To the best of your knowledge, where do they stand, just in general, around vaccines, right? Because forget about this particular one. If they are not, if they're on the fence in general or wavering around the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the Black community and history and all that kind of stuff, and the community senses that, right, then it's going to be challenging, right? They got to lean into this thing, as they say, full-throatedly, right? They got to be in it, and they got to say, look, we're on this side, and this other side is just nonsensical. And so for me, as this thing is going on, I mean, I appreciate you reaching out to them, but as I see it, born and raised here in Newark, they should be calling you. Your phone should be ringing off the hook right now, because they all understand what's going on. They've buried, they've eulogized countless, hundreds of people during this thing. So they know what's happening. And so, I mean, like I said, I appreciate you reaching out to them. But if they're not reaching out to you, if your phone isn't literally blowing up, then I am deeply concerned.
Well, I will tell you this. I agree that the faith community, the pastors, the imams, the rabbis, the folks that lead communities of faith are essential because they are the trusted individuals in the community. And the good news is a number of them have. I've had conversations with Reverend Louis Scott Roundtree. I was just on a call with Reverend Derek Green across the state. I met new allies in this effort, hopefully to spread the right news. I will say, though, that the bulk of the responsibility lies on us to educate, reach out, and answer their questions.
I'm not suggesting that it doesn't, but I'm gonna,
and we will do that. Because it's we've gotten, every time I've tried to do that with a leader of faith, I've been successul in getting them. And we've they don't always not always convinced.
But that's what I'm asking you. So that's where I was going. So when you say that you have to reach out to them and educate them about this, do they not know? Are they not clear? Are they, like, I'm concerned about that. So what do they believe any part of what the anti-vaccine people are saying? Have they bought in any way that there is some grand conspiracy by big pharma and the medical industry to do in black people? I mean,
not from what I've seen.
Okay.
The narrative that is most speaking to them and that they're most concerned about
right.
is whether we are asymmetrically or unjustly targeting the black community.
Got it.
Or minority communities in particular,
okay.
to test this virus as, quote unquote, guinea pigs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the anti-vaccination movement is grabbing onto that concern.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to prove that that's not the case.
Right.
And when I say educate, I really mean inform about what we're trying to do. These are very educated people
Correct.
who know.
No,
well, one of the things that you have to actually do in terms of a lot of the black community is, yes, you are targeting the research to black people, and because you need that research to cure the black people.
Right. That's the nuance that we're trying to convey, and if you're blindsided by the announcement of a trial, I would understand that you might be skeptical, that you don't believe that nuance yet. You don't believe that it's not because this is the first testing ground and we're just going to see what happens. It's really because actually the vast majority of people in the study are now white,
right?
And unless we make the study inclusive, we just cannot be entirely convinced that it will work in our community.
But here's the interesting thing. But Vincent, what you said is very important, right? They've taken this word target and they've made it a dirty word, right? And so you can't say it when in fact it's what you need to do. If again we look at the data, and the data showed us that blacks and people of color were disproportionately dying because of underlying condition. Fact. That is a fact. And so now you have to go into that community of people who were most susceptible to death, and you have to deal with them. So that is targeting. And so, but they made it, they
villainized
the word. Villainized the word target, so you can't say it. But this is what I'm saying. So for me, I would love to see, and I have most of those pastors' numbers in this phone right here, Doc. Yeah. When I end this, I'm going to call them and ask them how many of them are going to come out here and stand against these folks who are standing against the community. See, because that's what it really comes down to, guys. Those folks are coming here and they're standing against the black community and the community of color for their own personal gain. And my question now is, what is it specifically? I'm going to ask, when I call you guys, I'm going to ask you, because I know you listen, I'm going to ask you, what is it specifically that you need? What information do you need specifically in the next hour, hour and a half? So that you come down here and you stand for the community and you stand against this nonsense. What is it that you need? Be specific. And we'll get you that data. We'll get you that information. And then I want you to show some courage. I want you to stand for the community against these people who are standing against the community. See, let's put it in plain terms now. Let's not dance around it anymore. You want to lead from the front, not from the back. And I'm talking to the faith-based community right now. All of you guys and women. See, Vincent, I thought I was going to be calm the whole show. You see, but when you start breaking it down, right? When you start breaking it down, I mean, lives are at stake. Lives are at stake. I personally have buried far too many people, watched far too many people be buried. Classmates, former classmates, family members, friends. And so, and the shame of it is, so have they. So have they. Some of them who are going to be out there, I've spoken to. Shame on you.
I appreciate this.
Let's look at some of these people who are actually putting the death of thousands of people on their lives are in their hands. They're contributing to the death of thousands of people just for their own personal gain and accolade, which is very insidious. I mean, talk about being a sucker. You're listening to somebody who wants you to basically act against your best interests, and the only person who gains from it is the person you're listening to. Come on! How big of a sucker can you be?
Listen.
I mean, really, people, this nonsense needs to stop. I am sick and tired of getting emails about family members and friends who have died because of this virus.
I'm just asking folks, what information? What specific information do you need? What is it? What information? Right? Because we'll make it available in this feed. Right? So you ask the question. Yep. We'll get the information for you. Yep. So nobody's hiding. So here's the thing. Nobody is hiding. We're willing to have the conversation. We're willing to lean into it. All of the conspiracy theorists, none of them are calling this number right now. I want you to understand. See, we're here. Where are they? See, they're hiding in the shadows. Cowards. We're here.
Well, they also needed some lessons in black history. I mean, when we talk about the anti-vaccination movement, we think, well, gee, people need to know more biology. But they also need to know some black history. Because immunization was an African idea. It was brought to the United States by an enslaved African. He was the single most important person in public health in North American history, and we don't even know his real name. His slave name was Onesimus, which is the name that came from the Bible. And he taught Cotton Mather how to do immunization against smallpox.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was called variolation back then. It wasn't even called vaccination back then. Because they were inoculating people with wild smallpox. I talk about this in No More Muses. But this was it was dangerous because you were giving people live smallpox. Vaccination was much safer because you were giving people cowpox, which is a much less dangerous disease. So that was an advance. But the idea of immunizing people was African technology, and it was initially rejected by the European and North American medical profession because they thought of it as something that African people do. So for people in the African American community now to be suspicious about vaccination, no, you should embrace it.
Yeah, that is an incredible point, and I'm going to educate myself on this because I wasn't aware of that when you first said it. Here's what I'll say. I hope that folks don't assume that I'm trying to recruit people in the trial by being on Eric's show. That's not the case. My goal today is to dispel myths and statements that are being said out there that we are doing something unjust, targeted, and racist with this study. It is quite the contrary. And I hope that what I've talked about today, what Eric has talked about, and others who support what we're trying to do is at least convincing you of that. And then, it's completely fair to say I support vaccination more generally, but I'm not sure about this one yet, and I'm not willing to enroll in the study. That is your right. That is your right, and we expect the vast majority of people in our community to say that. But for that small number of people who are willing to participate, we are here for you. I am going to be alongside of you participating, and you will be doing amazing things to help us understand what will finally get us out of this pandemic. And what you just heard now about the implications of this in our community is not an exaggeration. I watched as truckloads of dead bodies were taken from this community, from this hospital, from other hospitals in the city. We were storing them right here in the parking lot for a little bit. This is like nothing I've ever seen before in healthcare. And I'm telling you, when I was walking around this hospital And I was trying to support the front line. I was asking them what they needed. I was bringing PPE myself at times to make sure folks had what they needed. You can't help but look in the patient room to see who's on that ventilator and to see who's in that room short of breath on oxygen. These were people of color from this community, almost exclusively. So the reason I am so passionate about this and trying to bring this to our community is because we need something that works. We need something that gets us out of this. It's like nothing as a physician, as a public health official, former public health official, and now running this hospital. I've never seen anything like this pandemic before, and we have to get out of it as fast as possible.
And this is what I'm going to say. Listen, and I understand you, Doc. He's not here to recruit people. But I'm telling you, if Black Americans don't participate, getting out of this thing will be more difficult for us. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So I understand what he said, that he's here to educate. Right? But part of the education is realizing that just looking at the data and understanding how we have been disproportionately impacted by this. And now to say we're going to stand on the sideline and not participate in it so that they could understand more clearly how it benefits us. That makes no sense to me. So I'm saying we got to get off the sideline and we got to get in the game. We have to be a part of this.
One of the biggest things is not only being on the sideline and getting the game, but get out of the way. God, I mean, really, you anti-vaccine. You want to discredit the scientists because you can't be a scientist. You people who want the prestige of the doctor, in which you sit on your butt and do nothing. Get out of the way. God, I'm so sick of. I'm so worn out about how this virus has become so political. When in the history of America has politics stood in the way of national health? When? Every country that is doing fundamentally well economically has now crushed this virus, except ours. Because it's so political, because they've got the resources to spew all this propaganda, because they have the power to arouse a uneducated mob to stand in the way. I'm sick of this. Let's do what we need to do to eliminate this virus and move on to the next point.
Give me 1 second, guys. I got Diane L. Murray Clements who wants to chime in, and I want to bring her in.
I think it's.
I'm here, Eric. If you can hear me.
I got you. Do I have Vincent? Are you still on? Vincent? Hold on. Oh wait.
Maybe if you call him now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Diane. I got you, but go ahead. Vincent will call back. He'll figure it out.
Okay, he had enough time. He'll be fine. How you doing, Doctor? This is Diane Murray Clemens. I have some questions, and I've been in and out of listening. So please forgive me if any of these questions have already been answered by you. And I'm not sure, Eric, if you just clarified. Did you ask any of the questions that I sent over?
No, I didn't.
Okay, cool.
Not that I don't love you, but.
No. I just wanted to make sure. It's no big deal. So, Doctor, there's some questions with people in the Black community, and I think you've addressed this already, about being fearful, being considered test dummies for these different vaccines, specifically in regards to COVID-19. Can you just explain, if you know, exactly when it comes to medical testing and vaccines, how are they developed, and how are we getting to the point now that we are closer to developing a cure? Because usually we've heard that it would take 18 months, 24 months to 10 years.
Okay, you can answer the question, too. Diane, you still there?
Yep, I'm there. Go ahead.
Okay. So you're talking about, Ms. Clements, the time that it's taking to do these trials. That's the main concern.
Correct.
How do we explain that? Very legitimate question. So, normally, we would do multiple phases of the clinical we're saying something is safe enough to get to. Phase 1, test safety. Phase 2 usually tests a combination of safe dosing and side effects. Phase 3 tests the intervention against the standard of care. We did phase 1 already, which tests for safety. The results were favorable. In the words of Dr. Fauci himself. Phase 2 and phase 3, which is determining dosing and possible, other possible side effects, is being done at the same time as phase 3. Phase 2 started earlier. But to be safe, the phase 3 dose is a low dose. It's a low dose that caused minimal side effects in phase 1. What phase 2 will allow us to do is tweak it, depending on what we find, but phase 3 is the real study assessing its efficacy. What we should do is make sure that a vaccine is not available to the general population unless it is proven to actually reduce incidence of that infection, but also prove safe in the study population. We have 30,000 people total that are enrolling in the phase 3 trial across the country. Again, majority white, vast majority white up to this point. To me, it's scientifically acceptable to do both of them at the same time because you've already done phase 1, which assesses safety. So yes, it is accelerated. The broader context is that we're in the middle of a global pandemic that continues to kill people every day, lots of people every day, and trying to balance speed with really assessing efficacy. That's the most important thing, really assessing efficacy. If the FDA, for political reasons, decides to approve a vaccine before a certain date that's coming up in November without us having that data, then I would be the first one to say this is not safe because we don't have that.
Okay. So my next question is, in regards to the trials that you're asking people to participate in, what are the requirements? Are these people that were previously diagnosed, who were carriers or were sick? And are any of the trials going to be taken from any of the deceased persons as well?
So here are the inclusion criteria: 18 or older, so no children. Overall stable health condition. So I have diabetes, you can have diabetes, you can have certain chronic conditions, but they have to be well controlled. So you can't be in and out of the hospital with an ongoing issue related to a disease. So overall health. And those are the two main things. And never having had coronavirus before, and never having had a different type of vaccine in a trial before. So those are the main inclusion criteria.
Okay.
Again, this is really to prevent coronavirus. So any of those things, like if you've had COVID before, or if you've got another vaccine candidate, could interfere with the results, which is why those folks are excluded.
Okay. So I know that the school is also a teaching school, educational school. Are your scientists in the school developing this vaccine? Who developed this particular vaccine that's being tested on people? And is there any monetary profit for the scientists that you know of able to receive from the development of their vaccine?
So
if it actually...
The simple answer is no. The principal investigator here does not have equity, any share in the company that developed the vaccine. The vaccine was developed by a private company called Moderna. If the vaccine proves to be effective, then the folks who run that company invested the money in developing the vaccine will of course gain from it because there's massive amounts of it being purchased. But again, only if it's effective. The people doing the study don't have a conflict of interest because they're not involved financially in any way. And I am not involved financially in any way, nor is anybody in the hospital that I'm aware of, because we all have to fill out conflict of interest forms that clearly say what stock we own, if we're involved or employed as a consultant, whatever it is. I can speak for myself. I'm certainly not, we're not aware of anybody involved in doing the actual study who is financially interested in its success. It's really about seeing if it works for the health of everyone.
Okay, so you mentioned that McDermott is one of the companies that's actually providing you with this particular vaccine. I know a lot of people also know that Pfizer and Merck were working on something as well. Was there any particular reason why you guys are working with Moderna, or are you guys open to work with other companies to see whichever company comes out with something that actually works?
We are open to it. There's a hospital in New Brunswick is doing Agee University Hospital, which is also Rutgers affiliated, is doing a different type of vaccine, and that's going to launch a little bit later. We were successful in getting this trial here, but there are dozens of candidates being studied across the country. We just happen to be approved for this particular trial. There's no preference for it. The NIH is trying to spread out who's doing what to make sure there's bandwidth, make use of all the academic centers that they have. But again, this is a very targeted effort at scale to find something in there. So it might not be Moderna, it might not be Johnson & Johnson, it might not be Pfizer, it may be a different type of vaccine. But hopefully at least one of them works, and we will be able to eventually give it to folks in this community successfully.
So do you apply for the trial, or do they select you?
We have our scientists indicating they're interested in doing a clinical trial. And the NIH is evaluating those applications very fast and making decisions based on that. So we get funding to do the study from the NIH, including funding for all of the clinical follow-up for patients. So if you find a side effect in a patient, that patient will get treated here in Boston. Because that's a funded clinical study. So that's how that process works.
Vincent, call back.
No, Vincent, don't call back. So I have another question. So in regards to the accreditation or being accredited from the NIH for them to approve you to do a trial, what do you get from that in the end? Do they give additional funding to the university that's spread out to the community? Like, how does that work?
Saying what is the university's incentive?
Yeah, it's
right.
A grant funded only for the medical school and the hospital to do the study. There's no other carrot or financial incentive other than the funding needed to conduct the study. That's what the grant that comes from the NIH is for. We're very strict about how you use those grant dollars.
Okay.
Dollars are precious in general, so it's just to conduct the study.
Thank you. Now, the other thing, last question, is in regards to those who are being part of the test trial, is there any particular assurance or insurance that's provided to them, should financially, if there are any side effects, or are they given any other type of compensation in regards to lifetime health care if there are some side effects from this testing?
So during the study period of 2 years, their follow-ups are all covered by the funding that we have to do the study. So there's going to be no direct charge to the patient. If there's a side effect that's dealt with at no cost for the patient. Beyond that time period, let's say 10 years from now, if there's something that happens, we're not sure if it's related to the vaccine or not, that would not necessarily be covered. But that's part of understanding what the risks may be. We're very clear with patients. We haven't studied this for longer than a few months. We're not completely aware of all of the side effects that can happen potentially years down the road. So that's a risk that everyone's taking. Now, if it helps, vaccines in general have not been found to cause long-term severe side effects. The benefit for the vaccine therapy that we include vastly outweighs the risk because you're preventing yourself, in this case, from getting COVID-19. By the way, COVID-19 itself is causing long-term complications. We're seeing people young people, months after they resolve to get over COVID-19, coming back with shortness of breath, complications that they're not able to exercise nearly as well anymore. This is a serious disease. It's a serious disease that's not just causing death immediately when you get it, but the stuff that you have to deal with at least for months now.
So Diane, I mean, I was listening to the question that you asked, and I thought about it for a second, and I tell you, my first instinct was, wow, so if somebody, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, experiences something as a result of this, they're kind of on their own. And then I listened to the doctor's answer, and I said, look, guys, at the end of the day, and this is why I'm saying get in the fight. We're fighting. We're fighting to save lives. And you have to take risks when you enter into a fight, right? There are no guarantees. The best that we can hope for is, and this is where the anti-vaccine people, Diane, and the other folks, this is the space that they're playing in. The best that we can hope for is that we're dealing with honest brokers. So when I'm sitting here with the doctor right now, and I'm asking him, and you're asking the questions, we have to now assess, is he an honest broker? Is he giving us the information? And what those folks out there who are going to be gathering later on today are betting on is that folks are going to look and base their decision on fear, lack of information, right, and distrust, and that they're going to lean the other way. But if we believe that they're honest brokers, that the only thing that's in it for them, and this is how the doc started, about his relationship with this community, his hospital's relationship with this community, what their mission and vision statement is, all of that. If we believe that, then we've got to get in the game and we've got to fight this thing because we understand what's at stake. And I'm telling you, when we talk about maximum sophisticated confusion, those people who are going to be lining up today are the authors of it. They're the authors of it.
You're right, Eric. Now, I have a couple more questions. And just going back to one thing that you said before, Doctor, you mentioned placebo, and I'm not a science major. I didn't do good in science. I just want to put that out as my disclaimer to begin with. But I know that from experience, usually when you get a vaccine, they give you a small amount of whatever it is that they're putting, whatever it is you're trying to fight, whatever the disease is, so that your body can fight off or learn to fight that particular type of disease. Is that the placebo, and how does that actually work with this? Because I know when you go get a flu shot, they give you a little bit of the flu to make sure you fight it off. So can you explain a little bit of that?
So the two possibilities, I won't know which are my definition, and because it's randomized, it's blind to me. But half the people enrolled in the study get the vaccine. So it's the mRNA vaccine, which again makes the viral proteins in your body and causes an immune response without giving you the disease. So it's a genetic disease without actually giving the disease. The other arm is when you mentioned placebo. Placebo is a decoy. It is not anything that is active. It's proven to be safe. So most of the time, placebo is just like salt water. And it's at the exact concentration that's in your body, so it doesn't cause any effect. Interestingly, in science, there's something called a placebo effect. So if people believe that they may be getting something that helps them, you often find that there's an improvement, which is why you have to give a placebo to really see if the actual mechanism of action of the real vaccine is working better than the so the decoy by the placebo by definition is a
But did you see? Because did you get that, Diane? Because again, one of the things that they're going to
a lot of times.
You said you didn't do on science. I'm sorry.
I didn't. I wasn't good at comprehending. I wasn't good at science because I wasn't good at remembering stuff.
Okay. But again, guys, one of the things that they're going to be talking about or alluding to is that they're going to be injecting you with some poison. That they're going to be injecting you with the virus, right? That's what's happening. And the doctor said very clearly that that's not the case. That what they will be injecting you with is something synthetic that mimics the virus, that is intended to trigger a response in your body to produce antibodies. Did I get that right, Doc? Bam! See?
You did well in science.
Well, I went to science high. Right? understand, like, you need these antibodies. So you need it, right? I don't, again, I guess I'm going to go back and say this again. There's something that you're not clear about. So if you go listen, here's what I'm going to charge you all with. If you're going to waste your time, and I'm saying to you it's going to be a waste of your time, right? And detrimental to your health too if you're standing next to those crazy fools who don't have face masks on. But if you do risk your life and waste your time, jot down what they say and then come and ask, and we'll answer the question. We're not going to run away from it. So if you show up, take copious notes, and we'll come back and we'll answer every single question. See, like I said to you, they know where I am. They didn't call today. They didn't call today because they're cowards. They're liars and they're cowards. I'll say them because I love you.
Listen, we're happy to, we're the ones putting on these forums and asking anybody to ask questions. The Facebook Live, we're going to do one of these things. Hi, it's a good question. It's in the street. It's back. That's okay, because if I'm allowed the opportunity with the scientists, with the people who got nothing and dedicate themselves to this community, this community is healthy. All we're asking for is the platform for conversation. Not being able to trials I mentioned, to open the door, hopefully convince you that this is not a racist targeting endeavor of the community, but rather, on the contrary, it is something that we need to do to make sure that this community benefits finding its items. If you don't believe me now, please come to our Facebook Live on Thursday. Advertising at the University of Hospital Facebook page. We're going to have folks on who are skeptical as panelists, just to prove that we're not just trying to sugarcoat what we're saying. And our goal is to answer any question you have, and when you hear all of that, you say, I don't want anything to do with this trial, completely agreed. What we want to make sure of is that the vast majority of people know we are not doing something unjust with this.
Hey, Diane.
Yes, Eric.
How we doing?
He's doing good. I see more questions. I always have questions. So, Doctor, the results. How will people be able to get the results? How soon will the results, and what results can you get out that will be public so people can know whether it's age, sex, male, female, binary, whatever, to see, so we could kind of get a gauge? Because I think the problem that people have is they look at numbers, they hear the numbers of COVID were very high. I myself had a friend that passed away early on in March from COVID, and so we don't know what numbers to look at. But when other people say, oh, well, 100,000 died from the flu, this is no different, we don't have to wear masks, it confuses people. So what do you think we should be paying attention to more so than the numbers, I guess the question is, on how we evaluate what's going on with COVID, besides we know washing our hands and wearing masks and stuff? What do you suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, anybody enrolling in this study, there is a safety concern that our monitoring committee is going to do. By the way, if you enroll in this, we're not going to just give you this thing. We're going to call you. We're going to have you come in and walk to make sure that you're okay. But folks, for safety concerns, that will be announced especially first to individuals who participate, and it will be announced publicly by the NIH. There's a safety concern during a vaccine that hasn't been discovered yet. Again, unlikely if you've already gone through that stage of study, but if there's something discovered later, that will be made public. There's also interim results that are going to be published likely sometime this week from this study that shows so far what the infection rates are for folks who received the vaccine versus those who didn't receive it. I don't have an exact date on that, but the intention is to release at least a 2 to 3 month follow-up to see how the vaccine is doing, and that will also be made public transparently through the NIH and through a peer-reviewed study that's ultimately published. We don't know.
So in this trial, are people expected to be quarantined while the trial is going on? Life.
They're not expected to be quarantined. So you're supposed to go through what you normally do. The idea is to see there's going to be a baseline reinfection that will go from the folks who received the placebo. And there's going to be a baseline reinfection for folks who received the vaccine. We're not asking anyone to quarantine unless there's a public health mandate to do that. If the governor has to order another stay-at-home order because the case rates are soaring, then of course you would follow that. But we're not specifically telling you.
Well, I want to ask this because you said it's going to be a baseline rate of infection. What's the infection going to be a result of? If we're saying that the placebo is saline, which is equal to what's already in your body, and you're saying that those who are actually getting the vaccine, that it is not the virus, but it is a synthetic which mimics the virus that is intended to produce antibodies to fight the actual virus. Where would the infection be?
The infection we're talking about not from the virus or the vaccine.
I just wanted to be clear about that, Doc.
It is from the community. So every time, unfortunately, every time you walk out your door in the morning, there's a voice clicking on your door, which is why we do these things. By the way, all that guidance will apply. Social distancing, but you still might get it.
Right.
It's a risk of going out the door.
Oh no, I understood the answer, but I just wanted to make sure because see those folks on the other side, man, they're genius at twisting words and things like that. So being clear. Vincent, you're back on the line, man. What's up? Vincent.
Hey, I was just, I'm sorry, I was just watching the show from your YouTube channel and just loving it and listening.
So, listen, man, I don't know. I got to call my doc and find out, because, a couple of years ago I was diagnosed with stage 2 stomach cancer, so I had a lot of stuff to take place, right? Before I can enter into any of those things, I need to make sure I check with those guys at Sloan. But if I can, I will. I will be on the front line, guys. If they tell me that, if they give me the thumbs up, I will do everything I can to enter into this trial because I want to be a part of helping save lives. Because that's what it is, right? It's me being a part of helping save lives. So what side are you on?
I'm on the side of being part of the solution rather than being part of the problem.
Well, I'm on the side of watching, waiting, and seeing because you're not going to trial on me, but that's okay. Always has to be people around to tell the story. I'm okay with that.
No, it's okay.
But I'm very supportive of whatever decision anybody decides to make. So, Doctor, before we end, can you just tell people how they can get more information about the Facebook Live that you're going to do, how they can participate in the trial if they're interested, and is it only open to Newark residents or African Americans, and who is the trial open to if they're interested?
The trial is open to first come, first serve. Anyone who's interested, they can email the Code Study, THECODSTUDY @njms.rutgers.edu. For the Facebook Live, go to our Facebook page, University Hospital. Just look it up on Facebook. We're going to put it up this Thursday at 6:30 a.m. It's going to be live. Please tune in to ask any questions. And any questions you have about the University Hospital, including on this topic or anything else, you can just email community@uhmj.org. And by the way, no, the study is not limited to black people or brown people. It is first come, first served people. And we're not allowed to ask for quotas, specific quotas, for a lot of good reasons. But we do hope that some people of color enroll in these studies so that we can ensure that a representative
So let me ask you this question. So I know you don't ask for quotas and all that kind of stuff, but the desire is, but the real, it's not even a desire, the actual need is to have a cross section so that you can get all of the information you need, right? So that's really a need. So with the 30,000 that you say will be entering into the trial, if you guys, for instance, see that 90% of those, the first come, first serve, wind up being non-black, non-people of color, will you hold spots in hope that people of color or black people enter into this?
That's up to the NIH, and it's up to the scientists running the study professionally. You do always risk basically targeting mass purchase areas of usual that's actually itself, just to make sure safe. But the best thing we can do, and the most ethical way to do it, is to do programs like this. It's explain the importance of doing things like that. And hope that people who are inclined to do it. Again, I hope everybody understands who's listening to this program now, and this is not another example of a Tuskegee or taking advantage of people of color research. That has been, unfortunately, falsely spread by folks trying to.
Listen, guys, if you decide that you want to involve yourself, don't allow people to bully you. Don't allow that to happen. Stand your ground. I'm not talking about like guy, but stand your ground. This is New Jersey, not with a weapon, but with a backbone. All right, with some courage. This has been enlightening for me. I gotta tell you, when I got the call that I have an opportunity to come down here and to learn a little bit more, because and I'm sorry that Lori, dropped off the call. I've gone back and listened to countless shows that she's been on. Oh, are you? Yes. Excellent. Well, see, so you'll hear my compliment. The countless shows that she's been on has been a wealth of information. And I'm going to go back and listen to this show, and I'm going to tap the doctor here, to get some more information, to be able to personally be more informed about things, so that when I'm talking about them and confronting these, what do you call them, Vincent? Jackasses in the community, right? That we do it in a in the most effective way possible, so that we can give you guys the information you need to save your life. That's what it's about right now, guys. It's about saving your life. Well, listen, Diane, I think we're about it, right?
Right. Wait. One more time, doctor. Give me the website or the location again, because I'm Googling and I can't find it exactly where they should go for the trial and information.
No, it's an email address.
Oh.
So,
okay.
The email address is thecovestudies, THECOVE study at njms.rutgers.edu, and everybody will email all the information they need, including links to the.
Wait a minute, is it COVE or COV?
COVE.
Okay, guys, it's COVE, even though, all right, COVE.
Study is an acronym, capital C or this particular study.
Okay. Hey, Diane, would you put that email in the thread?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, listen, well, we're about to check out, but Diane, I got to ask you, because I'm down here, enjoyed this conversation, but when I step outside, I'm going to walk over to the fish truck and get some fish. You want
So you can order me one, and I'll probably drive by and pick you up.
Oh, see, there we go. So I'm gonna.
But doctor, thank you. I hope your doors are open to us again, so we can come back. Because I'm sure as the world continues to go on, there's going to be many more questions about COVID, how to move forward in different environments that we are engaging in. But again, thank you for being open and answering all the questions.
I will come on the show anytime. Feel free to reach out.
I will see you later, Diane. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the share button. And again, any questions you have, put them in the feed, and we'll get them answered. I promise you. Thanks for tuning in. Vincent, you want to...
Incredible show today. We've shared a great deal of information. Doctor, I'd like to thank you for your wealth of knowledge and your passion with this project. Lori, as always, you are just a huge resource of information, leading people to the truth. And for those people out there who are spreading your maximum sophisticated confusion that are causing people to lose their lives, we invite you at any particular time, call up when we have these experts so that you can place your belief versus the true facts of science and give people a better chance and an opportunity at saving themselves. As always on the show, we say, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep socially distant, stay home as much as possible. I'm Vincent Squire on behalf of Eric Dawson and Diane, the Queen of Morning Media, and our guest, the doctor, and the clinical trials, and Lori Thomas. We'd like to say, if it's God's will, we'll be back to express more information to get us through this COVID-19 virus and enhance our lives. God bless and be safe, everyone.